Out of curiosity, what was your religion, or what is your religion?
I grew up, it was kind of like a non-denominational Christian church, but it was sort of like the typical evangelical megachurch type thing.
So born again, basically?
Yeah. And I mean, now I would still say that like Jesus is definitely a huge example for how I live and how I go about things, but it's not like
Born again?
well, it's not like, you know, you have to do things my way or I'm not going to listen to you. I have a lot of respect for how other people go about religious practices, and I've studied Eastern religion a lot and have a lot of influence in that too. And so just taking like simple ideas that are easy to throw away, and instead of turning religion into something militant and trying to rule the world with making everybody else think the same thing you do, I was like, well, why aren't people who are saying they believe in Jesus like living like him? And he was out there visiting, like you said, visit the stranger and the prisoner and clothe the hungry and feed the poor, and people, at least that I saw, weren't doing a whole lot of that. So a lot of groups on the list are just different things that it seems like people have kind of drifted away from. So I came up with this list, and there are places all across the country, and I figured I'm kind of strong, and I'm young, and why not? So I'll walk around to walk and bike to these different places, and then stop and meet with groups along the way. And I've been on the road for 2.5 weeks and met so many great and interesting people already, and learned so much. And so like the last stop I made was in Philadelphia, and visited a group there who had it was called Alex's Lemonade Stand, and it was started by this 4-year-old girl who was diagnosed with cancer, and rather than just give up and say, my life's over, I have cancer now, she went out in her front yard and put a lemonade stand out there and tried to raise money to help cancer patients. And since then, it's become this huge organization that's raised like $25 million, and from somebody not giving up. And it's so practical too that, how hard is it to set up a little stand in your front yard or your school or your church or whatever and help contribute to this? And I tried to pick things like that, and also things that that bring people together, because I think so much of it, like coming from a background that was so full of paranoia and just kind of creating this little bubble that, like, everybody's kind of out to get you, and that you have this, you're right about everything, and you have to preserve this, and you have to kind of spread this, and no room for hearing other points of view, and no listening to people. That's a very big part of who I am now too, is just trying to learn as much as I can and trying to hear things from different points of view and try and find common ground, that even if people don't agree on something, that we're all still people, and that there are things that, hopefully through working together, that we can also solve problems on. So like one of the huge issues is abortion, and I think that like neither side thinks that it's the ideal situation, but instead of everybody yelling back and forth and insulting each other and all the time and energy spent doing that, if people were to come together and try and address the problems that are behind it, and if people were to be more understanding and understand kind of like the whole social structure, rather than just focus all their anger and hate onto, they say you can say you're loving an unborn child, but if you're showing hate constantly to different communities or to underprivileged people and not doing anything to help, then what kind of love is that? So like I picked an adoption agency and a women's shelter. And I mean, so I just think there's so much out there, and that can be so divisive, but that there's so much common ground too that people can build on and can use to solve problems. And so like a couple days ago, I took part in this peace walk. It was an interfaith peace walk, and I think it was over in Brooklyn. And I mean, I was excited about it, but it didn't really hit me till I was there, like how powerful of a thing that was to see people from all these different religious backgrounds able to come together and do something like that, and just realizing how divisive a lot of people still can be. Like when I got ready to do this trip, talking to different relatives of mine and stuff, and I talked to them about some of the groups on my list, and people were critical of me because I don't pick all explicitly Christian groups. And so like one of the groups is this guy who's built 75 schools in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and offers, you know, for poor people sometimes the only alternative education to this extremism. And so people will ask me, well, does he teach Christianity there? And of course he can't, or else he wouldn't have any schools there. And just thinking about it, and especially being part of this walk the other day, just really thinking about that, like people would say it's not even worth putting in that effort to try and bring people together, to try and reduce the violence between cultures, that if they're not doing things exactly as you are, that it's better to endorse military action so long as you're using the right God's name or whatever. And I mean, so we're watching a video before this march about like the Crusades, and it's like, I don't know, it's like almost disguised that, you know, even though we're not out there with like giant crosses on our chests or whatever, that there's still so many ideas and everything going on about all this divisiveness, and that it's about who said what, or I was born here, you were born there, all these differences that shouldn't really even matter, and that there's so much that should bring us together. And so that's what I've come to now, and hopefully as I continue to journey, I'll learn a lot more and learn more ways that I still think the same way, of that I divide things and prejudge people, and hopefully I'll be able to grow as I go too, and hopefully I'll be able to show people more practical ways that I learned from these different organizations of things that you can do to bring people together.